This week on Africa Weekly, we focus on Gabon, where centuries-old exploitation of child labour remains entrenched. And we meet a Kenyan tanner who has found an innovative way to recycle fish waste by using the skin to make leather. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Zimbabwe's military has vowed to stay neutral in upcoming elections, dismissing suggestions that it will deploy soldiers to influence upcoming national polls. The army appeared to have staged its media briefing in response to reports that it had deployed active service personnel to rural areas to campaign for candidates in ZANU-PF primary contests.
Our role in the elections is mainly to support the Zimbabwe Republic Police in their role of maintenance of law and order in the country before, during, and after the harmonized elections.
The military has been under close scrutiny following its brief takeover in November that led to the resignation of former President Robert Mugabe. Campaigning is in full swing for the July 30th vote, the first in almost 4 decades in which Mugabe will not be a candidate. French soldiers operating in troubled northern Mali were targeted in an apparent terror attack as a car bombing left 4 civilians killed and dozens wounded, including 4 soldiers. The ambush was the 3rd attack in the country in just a few days, including a deadly attack on the Mali headquarters of a 5-nation regional force known as G5 Sahel.
They died, gunned down, killed. Coldly murdered by the enemies of these values. Nothing can justify such a horror.
The unrest underscores the fragile security situation in the West African nation as it prepares to go to the polls on July 29th. Tunisians elected their first female mayor of the capital on Tuesday, following a second round of voting by councillors, which was boycotted by left-wing and centrist parties, refusing to support the candidates of either of the main parties. Islamist-backed candidate Souad Abdelrahim defeated a city official who served under ousted despot Zain El Abidine Ben Ali. The 53-year-old manager of a pharmaceutical firm has risen to the fore as one of the new faces of veteran Islamist party Ennahda as it seeks to modernize its image.
Today is the first time a woman became mayor in the city of Tunis. We are proud and we dedicate this to all Tunisian women, the women of my country. We dedicate it to our youth.
Around 2,000 police officers stationed in northeast Nigeria, a region frequently targeted by Boko Haram attacks, protested on Monday, demanding months of back pay. The demonstrators blocked the main road outside the police headquarters in the Borno state capital Maiduguri. Non-payment of salaries is not unusual in Nigeria, particularly in recent years, as the country slid towards recession after the collapse of global oil prices from mid-2014. And staying in Nigeria, following a meeting with his Nigerian counterpart Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday, French President Emmanuel Macron took off his jacket and tie in Lagos to celebrate African culture. Macron's visit to Afrobeat legend Fela Kuti's music venue, The Shrine, was part of his latest attempt to forge closer ties with English-speaking Africa. His trip also included a stop in Mauritania, where he attended the final day of an African Union summit dominated by security issues in the restive Sahel region. Djibouti launched the first phase of Africa's biggest free trade zone on Thursday, seeking to capitalize on its strategic position as one of the world's busiest trade routes. At ceremonies in the capital, the president hailed the scheme as the culmination of infrastructure projects, boosting Djibouti's place in international trade and commerce. Months after the death of Sudan, the world's last male northern white rhino, scientists announced that they have grown embryos containing DNA of his kind, hoping to save the subspecies from extinction. The team's work, using a recently patented 2-meter egg extraction device, resulted in the first ever test tube-produced rhino embryos.
At this transit centre on the outskirts of the Gabonese capital Libreville, many children are hiding a traumatic past. The youngsters here are victims of human trafficking. Snatched from other African countries, most endured long and perilous journeys being brought to Gabon.
I was trafficked through Nigeria to get to Gabon. I spent 3 months there. Then I came by canoe to Gabon, to my owner's house.
Once in Gabon, the trafficked girls are sold to work without pay, often as maids with abusive families.
She didn't pay me, she didn't do anything for me. I don't want to go back. Once, when she saw that 100 francs were missing, that the money was gone, she beat me. She hit me with shoes and with a piece of wood.
Like Adama and Tsunami, hundreds of children are brought illegally to Gabon, a relatively rich Central African country. Rescued children are brought to this transit centre before being sent back home. Yet, on their return, there is no guarantee that they won't fall back into the hands of traffickers.
Child trafficking here is part of an international organised crime network, and it has a large presence across West and Central Africa. So it's not always easy to follow traffickers and children going from one country to another, crossing through another country I won't name, before arriving in Gabon.
Some children are even forced into prostitution, and police say that their efforts to combat this are hampered by a recent relaxation of border crossings in Central Africa, and the lack of legal pressure exerted by judges on traffickers.
It's leather, but not as you know it. Newton from Kisumu in Kenya is a tanner of fish leather. Once the scales are off, the fish skins dry for a day before Newton can start tanning. First the skins soak in a drum, then the remaining flesh is taken off so the skins can be stretched.
This is what we now call a crust, fish leather crust.
Newton decided to create his fish tanning business in 2012 after witnessing huge quantities of fish being wasted in the fishing industry.
In Kisumu, we have several filleting industries, fish filleting industries. They produce close to 150,000 metric tons of fish waste. 80% of this is actually fish skin. Initially, this fish skin used to be thrown.
Newton now employs 12 people full-time. Agnes has been working with him for nearly 4 years.
I discovered this trade, and from then on my life was changed. Before it was difficult, now it is much better.
As well as cutting down on waste, Newton has also turned his hand to fashion, creating his own fish leather footwear and clothing.
If we have fish, why can't we be proud of our fish and use it more economically and be proud of it? So when I put on the shoes made from fish leather, I put on the cap as well as the jacket, I feel happy, I feel very proud.
Through investment, Newton hopes one day to employ more people, scale up his business, and make a name for fish leather on the world stage.
14 ethnic communities in Kenya's Marsabit County set aside their differences in this year's 11th Marsabit Lake Turkana Culture Festival near Lake Turkana in northern Kenya to showcase their culture, promote tourism and build better relationship between the tribes.
The festival is great. It brings people together. It unites community. It shows how communities are united.
And in Eswatini, the kingdom formerly known as Swaziland, hundreds of protesters attended the country's first gay pride march, calling for equality and rights. Africa's last absolute monarchy is ruled by King Mswati III, who has reportedly described homosexuality as satanic. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.